Hello everyone. This is Binsi Joseph from the Department of IAC, AGIT, Mangaluru. In this session, we will start with the fifth module in data communications. Okay. Following are the syllabus topics to be covered in this fifth module. That is, you have three important chapters. That is Wired LANs Ethernet, wireless LAN. LAN is nothing but local area networks, right? Yeah, wireless LANs and other wireless networks. Under that, we'll discuss the cellular telephony. Under wired LANs Ethernet, that is local area networks Ethernet. First, we'll discuss the Ethernet protocol, followed by the standard Ethernet, fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, and 10 gigabit Ethernet. Under wireless LANs, we have discussed introduction, then IEEE 802.11 project, and Bluetooth. Particularly in this video lecturing, we will discuss the first one, that is wired LANs Ethernet. Okay, there are two types of networks. So one is wired and one more is wireless networks, right? Ethernet is one of the protocols used in this local area networks. The IEEE has subdivided the data link layer into two sublayers. So one is LLC and one more is the MAC. LLC is nothing but the logical link control, and MAC is nothing but the media access control. Okay, this LLC, in fourth module, we discussed about this data link control, right, which handles framing, flow control, and error control. Here, this IEEE 802 project, it defines the flow control, error control, and a part of framing duties. These are collected into one sublayer called logical link control, this LLC. Okay, that is according to IEEE. This flow control, error control, framing duties, all these are grouped together into one sublayer called this LLC. That is according to IEEE 802 project. Okay. Framing is handled in both LLC as well as this MAC sublayer. Hence, making this MAC sublayer transparent so that LLC protocol can provide interconnectivity between different types of local area networks. Okay, this MAC, in module 4, we already discussed about media access control, right, MAC? Under that, its access methods like random access, controlled access, and channelization. All these we discussed. But IEEE project 802 has created a sublayer and is called this media access control, which defines a specific access method for each LAN. Example, this CSM, it defines this CSMA CD as a MAC method for the Ethernet LANs. Similar way, it defines a token passing method is used for token ring and token bus LANs. All this is shown in this diagram. See here how it defines the logical link control and MAC access control sublayers. Token ring physical layer, Ethernet physical layer, token bus physical layer, token bus MAC sublayer, LLC, and MAC sublayer. Okay. And the framing function is also handled by the MAC sublayer. The MAC contains a number of distinct modules. Each module defines the access method and the framing format specific to the corresponding LAN protocol. Next, we will look on to the evolution of Ethernet. Okay, Ethernet LAN was developed in 1970s earlier. After that, it has these 4 generations as shown here. These 4 generations. Okay, that is standard Ethernet, which is whose data rate is 10 Mbps, and you have fast Ethernet that is of 100 Mbps, and gigabit Ethernet, which is of 1 Gbps, and 10 gigabit Ethernet, which is of 10 Gbps. That is 1970s. They started develop with this standard Ethernet, and followed by some changes. They invented this fast Ethernet, and then they moved on to this gigabit Ethernet and 10 gigabit Ethernet, and so on. Next, let us briefly discuss all these generations one by one. What are the characteristics? Why it is called standard Ethernet? Why it is fast? And what is the data rate in all these category generations, and so on. We'll start with the first one, that is the standard Ethernet. This standard Ethernet provides a data rate of 10 Mbps. 10 Mbps data rate it provides, and its characteristics are first one is that it will provide connectionless service, as well as it provides the unreliable service. Okay. This connectionless service means each frame which is sent is independent of the previous or the next frame sent. That is, out of the 3 phases which we discussed in a 4th module, like when you send a packet, usually you have a connection establishment phase, then the data transfer phase, and one more is the connection termination phase, isn't it? But here in this standard Ethernet, usually this connection establishment and the last one, that is the connection termination phase, is not there. Only data transfer phase is present. Okay, in that case, what happens is this sender will keep sending the frame whenever it has. It is not bothered about whether it has reached the destination or not, and also the speed, that is the rate at which it is sending, number of packets sent, and the data rate at which it is sent. That is, the sender will keep on, it doesn't have to establish the connection. Whenever it has some packet, it will just keep on sending to the destination. And that is, there is no flow control or error control or anything, just it is sent and received by the receiver. And one more characteristic is this unreliable service. Why we call it as unreliable service is because if a frame is corrupted during the transmission, and if receiver find out that it is corrupted, then using CRC32, the receiver drops the frame silently. That is, when it drops the frame silently, this sender will not get to know that the frame is not is dropped by the receiver, and it will think that it is being received successfully. Okay, that's why it is called unreliable service. Next, we will see to the Ethernet frame format. As shown in this figure, Ethernet frame format has 7 fields. That is a preamble, SFD, that is a start frame delimiter, and destination address, source address, type, data and padding, and the last field, that is a CRC field. So it has in total 7 fields. Okay, this first field is called preamble, which contains 7 bytes. That is how much? 7 into 8 is equal to 56 bits it contains, and which has alternating zeros and ones. That is here you have a sequence of zeros and ones like this, 0 1 0 1, like this. You have zeros and ones, 56 zeros and ones. Okay, in this preamble here, this sequence will alert the receiver that the framing is coming, and so kindly synchronize its clock. That is, if the receiver has not synchronized its clock to receive the frame, then it will synchronize its clock to receive the frame by looking onto this particular preamble. And this preamble allows the station to recognize some beginning bits. That is, it can miss some beginning bits. Preamble is not a part of a frame. It is just added at the physical layer. Okay, the next field is the start frame delimiter, SFD. Okay, which this is a flag which defines the beginning of the frame. That's why it is called start frame. Okay, beginning of the frame, which is of the size 1 byte size. That means 8 bits. In this, the last 2 bits, usually this SFD, I told you earlier in one frame format, we have discussed this SFD. Usually this has the format like this, that is 10101011. This is usually sent when the receiver sees this particular sequence, that is 10101011. It understands that it is the start of the frame. Okay, in this the last 2 bits, that is 1 1, alerts the receiver that the next field is the destination field. Okay, the receiver will understand that after seeing this 1 1, it will understand that the next field to be read is the destination address. Okay, destination address, this field is of 6 bytes. That is how much? 6 into 8, 48 bits. This contains the link layer address of the destination station. Usually that is the receiver's link layer address it will contain. Okay, next is the source address. It is of 6 bytes. That is 6 into 8, same 48 bits. Okay, and this also defines the link layer address of the sender of the packet, the one who that is the source, the sender's address it will contain, which is of 6 bytes. Okay, next field is the type field. In this type field, it is of 2 bytes. This will define upper layer protocol link, like protocol upper layer protocols. That is for example IP or ARP, etc. what protocol it is using. Address ARP means address resolution protocol or internet protocol, etc., whose packet is encapsulated in the frame, and it is also used for multiplexing and demultiplexing purposes. Okay, now next, after this you have this data and padding field. Usually the data is enclosed in this session field. Okay, here this carries the data encapsulated from the upper layer protocols. It can vary from, that is 46 bytes to 1500 bytes. This is the minimum and this is the maximum. Okay, if the data is more than this 1500 bytes, means that is if it crosses the maximum limit, then in that case it has to be fragmented, and this fragmented pieces are sent in another frame. That is, you have to use one more frame to send the data. That means divide the data, send that is, use one more frame to send the data. Okay, and in case if this particular data field is less than this minimum payload length, that is 46 bytes, in that case what it will do is it will go with the padding. Padding is nothing but it will add zeros. Okay, and it will add zeros and it will make it up to this minimum payload length. Okay, usually this addition and deletion is done by the upper layer protocol. And the last field is this CRC, that is a cyclic redundancy check field, used for error detection. Here we use CRC 32. It is a 4-byte field. Okay, the receiver calculates CRC, and if it is 0 means it means that there is no corruption and the packet is accepted. Non-zero means there is corruption in the transmission, and hence packet will be discarded. Okay. Next, we will see the frame length. Let me erase this. Okay, frame length. Usually this Ethernet imposes restrictions on both the minimum and the maximum length of a frame. This minimum length of the frame and maximum length of the frame. Similar way, minimum payload length and minimum maximum payload length. Okay, this minimum length restriction is required for correct operation of CSMACD, that is carrier sense multiple access collision detection, for that protocol which we discussed in the 4th module. An Ethernet frame needs to have a minimum length of 64 bytes, that is a frame length should be 64 bytes, and the maximum is 1518 bytes. See, out of this 64 bytes, if you remove this header and trailer, that is this header and trailer together, how many bytes it is? 6, 6, 12, 14, 18 bytes, isn't it? If you remove this header and trailer, that is 18, that is 64 minus 18, you will get this 46 bytes. Okay, and this is the minimum payload length, and this is the maximum payload length. If the payload length is less than this 46 bytes, then what you are going to do? You have to do the padding, that is add 0, so as to make it a minimum payload length of 46 bytes. Otherwise, you have to divide this particular data and send using another frame. Okay, next we will see addressing. See, each station on an Ethernet network has its own NIC, that is a network interface card. Station means it can be PC or workstation or printer, whatever is connected to the internet. All this has its own, that is, it provides the station with a link layer address. This NIC. It is inside the station, and it will provide the station with a link layer address. And the Ethernet address is of 6 bytes. That is 48 bits normally, which is written in hexadecimal notation with a colon between the bytes. This shows how we are writing the address. Okay, this shows an Ethernet MAC address. Now we'll see how the transmission of this address bits will take place. Here is an example to understand how the bits are transmitted. See, usually the way the addresses are sent out online is different from the way they are written in hexadecimal notation. Okay, in this that is see that during transmission, it is transmitted from the left to right, byte by byte, and this each byte is transmitted from the right to left. That is, it is considered from the right to left. Why? Because the least significant bit, usually, see here is an hexadecimal notation, that is 4720 1B 2E 08 and W, and its binary representation is given here. That is 4 0 1 0 0 represents 4, and 7 0 1 1 1. Here 2 0 you have, that is 0 0 1 0. It is 2, and 0 0 0. Like that, you have represented this hexadecimal in using binary. Okay. Now this shows the third row here shows how it is transmitted. See, it says the address is sent left to right, byte by byte. That is, first you have to send this byte, next this byte, next this byte, next this byte, till the end. Okay. For each byte means this is the first byte, second byte, isn't it? For each byte, it is sent from right to left, bit by bit. That is, 1 byte means 8 bits, right? Okay, now you have 8 bits. When you are transmitting, you have to start from here, from the right to the left. It is why this is because, see, this last bit here, that is the least significant bit. What is the least significant bit here? 1, right? Usually this least significant bit specifies what kind of address it is using. That is, whether it is unicast, multicast, or broadcast. Okay, to understand that, you are sending it like this, that is from the right to the left, so that the receiver will easily understand whether it is a unicast or a multicast address. Okay, now see how it is transmitted from the right, 1 1 1 0 0 0 1 0. Here 1 0. Next byte, how it is transmitted. Next you have to send this byte, but starting from this least significant bit, 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 0. Here 0 0 0 0 0 1 0 0. Similar way, the third one, that is 1B, This is the hexadecimal notation. This is the binary representation 000110111. How it is transmitted starting from this bit 1111 and 000. Understood, right? All these are transmitted in a similar way. So you are clear with how it is sent out online. Next, we will see how to represent this unicast, broadcast, and multicast. What is this unicast, multicast, and broadcast address? A source address is always a unicast address. That is always you can have only one source, isn't it? The destination can be one or it can be more than one also. So it can be unicast, multicast, or broadcast, this destination address. See to this figure here, which shows how to distinguish a unicast address from a multicast address. If the least significant bit of the first byte in the destination address is 0, that is this is the least significant bit and this is the most significant bit. If this particular bit is 0, that means it is a unicast address. Unicast means it is 1 to 1, that is you have one sender and one receiver. Sender sends the packet directly to the receiver. Okay. And if this particular least significant bit is 1, that means it represents this multicast. Multicast means the send. So you have a source in, if you have a, say for example, if you have a Ethernet, okay, and n number of hosts are connected to that particular Ethernet, and you have a source which sends the packet. This packet will be received by all other nodes there. Okay. And all the nodes will decrypt the packet. Okay, then it will understand that it is not its address, so it will discard. Only the destination for which it was meant will take up the packet. Okay. Next, we will see to one. Okay, we will start with the categories of standard Ethernet. Standard Ethernet common implementations. What are the different categories? That is, you have 10 base 5, 10 base 2, 10 base T, 10 base F. Okay, before this, you have to know a simple formula to calculate the standard efficiency of standard Ethernet. It is given by efficiency is equal to 1 divided by refer to the notes. Okay, efficiency, one example is given, just go through that example as well. 1 plus 6.4 into a, small a. Okay, here a means it is the number of frames that can fit on the medium. This small letter a is the number of frames that can fit on the medium. If you get any questions on this, simply substitute the value That is, A can be calculated by how number of frames means propagation delay divided by the transmission delay. That is, A is equal to propagation delay P, propagation delay divided by the transmission delay, P divided by T delay. Okay. This standard Ethernet common implementations are the following: 10 base 5, 10 base 2, 10 base T, 10 base F. This standard Ethernet defines several implementations, but only 4 of them became popular during 1980s, and those are these 4. Okay. Now, in this nomenclature, generally you can say it as 10 base X. You can represent it generally as 10 base X. Here, this 10 represents the data rate. This 10 initial 10 means it represents that the data rate, that is, it is sent at 10 megabits per second, and the term base, BAC, base means baseband, that is a digital signal, and this X approximately defines either the maximum size of the cable in 100 meters. So for example, if I say 5, it represents a 500, or if it is 2, then it is 200 meters, or it might also define the type of the cable. Here T for unshielded twisted pair cable, that is used for UTP, and F for this fiber optic, and it shows the types of topology each one of this is using. 10 base 5 uses bus topology, 10 base 2 uses the bus topology, 10 base T uses star topology, 10 base F uses the star topology. Okay. Next is the encoding in a standard Ethernet implementation. All standard implementations use digital signaling, that is baseband, at 10 megabits per second. Let me erase this. Okay, at the sender, the data are converted to a digital signal using the Manchester scheme. At the receiver, the received signal is interpreted as Manchester and decoded into this data. As we saw earlier, this Manchester encoding is self-synchronous, and it provides a transition at each bit interval. This figure shows the encoding scheme for standard Ethernet. Now we will see to the first category, that is 10 base 5. Usually it is the represented as thick Ethernet. This is the first implementation, that is 10 base 5. This thick Ethernet says the size of the cable is more. This was the first Ethernet specification to use the bus topology. See here, this if you see to this physical arrangement, you can know you can see that this represents a bus topology, isn't it? With an external transceiver. This is the external transceiver here. Transmitter by receiver. It is transceiver means it is a transmitter by this receiver. And this is connected via a tap to this thick coaxial cable. This shows how it is implemented. This particular figure shows how it is implemented. The transceiver is responsible for transmitting, receiving, and detecting the collisions. And the transceiver is connected to the station via a transceiver cable, this cable that provides separate paths for sending and receiving. This means that collision can only happen in coaxial cable. This the maximum length of the coaxial cable must not exceed this 500 meter. If a length of more than 500 meter is needed, up to 5 segments, each a maximum of 500 meters can be connected using the repeaters. Okay, this is it says it is 10 data rate, 10 megabits per second data bits, and it uses the base band, and this is the how long it can use, the length, that is 500 meters. We'll see to the second generate type, that is 10 base 2 implementation. It is also called thin Ethernet or cheaper net. Okay, this 10 base 2 also uses a bus topology. See to this, this is a kind of bus topology, but the cable is much thinner and more flexible. How it is, see how it is represented, thin and it is more flexible. The cable can be bent to pass very close to the stations. Wherever the stations are, it can easily be flexible. In this case, the transceiver is normally part of the network interface card, that is NIC, which we saw now. NIC, network interface card, which is usually it is installed inside the station. Each of these station, it has a NIC card which will give the link layer address. This shows the basic implementation. Here you can see that it uses this 10 Mbps data rate, baseband, and this length is 185 meter. 2 means 185 meter. But this implementation is more cost effective than this 10 base 5, because thin coaxial cable is less expensive than the thick coaxial, and the T connections are much cheaper than the taps. These are called T connections. Here this host is connected to this cable using this T, looks like T, isn't it? That's why it's called T connection, TW. Okay, and the installation is simpler because the thin coaxial cable is very flexible. However, the length of each segment cannot exceed this 185 meter, that is close to 200 meter, due to the high level of attenuation in thin coaxial cable. Okay, this is about 10 base 2. Next we will see 10 base T. T represents twisted pair Ethernet. This 10 base T implementation is also called twisted pair Ethernet. It uses a physical star topology. The stations are connected to a hub. This is the hub via 2 pairs of twisted cable. Okay. See, this is star topology. All these hosts are connected to this 10 base T hub. Okay. Now see that two pairs of twisted cable create two paths, one for sending and one for receiving between the station and the hub. Any collision here happens in the hub. Compared to the previous ones, that is 10 base 5 or 10 base 2, we can see that the hub actually replaces the coaxial cable as far as the collision is concerned, and the maximum length of the twisted cable here is defined as how much. Okay, it is not given. It is 100 meter. That is to minimize the effect of attenuation in the twisted cable. The maximum length is specified to 100 meter. So here 10 represents the data rate 10 megabits per second. Base represents the base band, that is digital signal, and this T represents the twisted pair. Okay, the last one we'll see, that is 10 base F implementation. It is also called fiber Ethernet. This 10 Mbps Ethernet is the most common and is called 10 base F. 10 base F uses star topology, as you can see here. It uses star topology to connect stations to the hub. The stations are connected to the hub using two fiber optic cables as shown here. Two fiber optic cables, one for sending and one for receiving. And see to this general representation, that is 10 base F means that is this represents the data rate, that is 10 megabits per second, and base means the base band, digital base band, and F means it uses fiber optic cable. That's what it says. Okay. Next is the summary of standard Ethernet implementations. That is which one? See here, all these characteristics, media characteristics, and the length and the line encoding is given for each 10 base 5, 10 base 2, 10 base T, 10 base F. Usually the media used is thick coaxial cable, and for 10 and the length is 500 meter, Manchester encoding. 10 base 2 uses a thin coaxial cable. Length is 185 meters and uses the Manchester encoding. 10 base T uses 2 UTP with the 100 meter and uses the Manchester encoding. 10 base F, it is it uses two fiber cables. The length is 2000 meter and it uses the Manchester encoding. Before we wind up this session on standard Ethernet, we need to discuss one small topic, that is changes in the standard. Okay. This before we move on to the higher rate Ethernet protocols, like what we are going to discuss next, that is fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet. We need to discuss the changes that occurred to this 10 Mbps standard Ethernet. These changes actually opened the road to the evolution of the Ethernet to become compatible with the other higher data rate LANs. And that first we will discuss this bridged Ethernet. Okay, bridged Ethernet. The first step in Ethernet evolution was division of a LAN by the bridges. Okay, these bridges have two effects on Ethernet local area networks. One is that they raise the bandwidth, and the second one is they separate the collision domains. First, we'll see how they raise the bandwidth. Raising the bandwidth. Okay, in an unbridged Ethernet Ethernet network, the total capacity, that is for the standard Ethernet, usually the data rate is 10 Mbps, right? It is shared among all the stations with a frame to send. That is usually what all station wants to send the message. With all those stations, this particular capacity will be shared. In that case, if say if only one station has the frames to send, in that case what happens, that particular station can use the full capacity, that is 10 Mbps. But if more than one station needs to use the network, the capacity is shared, that is the capacity will be divided by the number of stations. Okay, this bridge divides the network into two or more networks, and each network will have this 10 Mbps capacity. Bandwidth wise, each network is independent. That is, we'll see to an example so that it will be clear for you. Okay, this figure shows an example network with 12 stations here, 6 stations plus 6 stations. Okay, this first part shows network without bridging. Okay, that means this entire network will share 10 Mbps. Okay, see, in case if 10 stations or yeah, these 12 stations wants to send the data, then how it will be shared, how the capacity will be shared, 10 divided by 12. Understood? The capacity, this each station capacity will be 10 divided by 12 Mbps. Okay. In the second possibility, see here you are dividing the network into two using the bridge. In this case, what happens is each of these network, that is, this is one divided, subdivided into two, right? This and this. Okay, this each of this will have the capacity 10 Mbps. Okay, so here in the Mbps, in the worst case, what happens is usually say this is 6 stations connected here, isn't it? But it will consider it as the 7 station. This bridge is also considered as one station. Okay, so the capacity, that is each station will have, what is the capacity here? Then 10 by 7. If all the station wants to send, then bandwidth is divided like this, that is 10 divided by 7, which is better. Instead of this is better, isn't it? Here also you will get 10 divided by 7. If we further divide the network, for example, if we use a 4-port bridge, each station is now offered 10 by 4 Mbps, which is 3 times more than unbridged network. Okay, that's the advantage of this particular bridged network. Next, we'll see to the second one, that is separating collision domains. Yeah, separating collision domains. Another advantage of our bridge. Okay, this figure shows the collision domains for an unbridged and a bridged network. This is without bridging and this is with bridging. You can see that the collision domain becomes much smaller and the probability of the collision is reduced here. Without bridging, 12 stations contend for access to the medium. With bridging, only 3 stations contend for access to the medium. That is for separating collision domains. Okay. Next, we'll see the switched Ethernet, second type, that is switched Ethernet. The idea of a bridged LAN, that is local area network, can be extended to a switched LAN like this. Okay, that is instead of having 2 or 4 network, as we discussed in our example, we used 2 networks, isn't it? In this one, bridged LAN. Okay, instead of that, here we are using n networks. That is what is the number of domains connected to the switch? That many networks you are going to use. That is, you are separating, divided into n. That is your this collision domain is divided into n domains. Okay. This evolution from bridged Ethernet, which we discussed, to a switched Ethernet. This switched Ethernet was a big step that opened the way to an even faster Ethernet, like this switched LAN. Okay. Next, we will see one more improved version, that is full duplex Ethernet. See, one of the limitations of 10 base 5 and 10 base 2, that is the first 2 standard Ethernet, was that communication is half duplex, isn't it? Half duplex means a station can either send or receive, but cannot do both at a time. The next step in the evolution, that is, it was to move from switched Ethernet to full duplex switched Ethernet, was that is sending and receiving simultaneously. The full duplex mode increases the capacity of each domain from how much? It will double, that is from 10 Mbps to 20 Mbps. Okay, see in this figure, this shows a full duplex mode. Here, if you see, instead of one link that is between the host and the switch, you have 2 links, one for transmit and one for receive. That is simultaneously you can transmit the message as well as receive the message from the other line. Okay. Thank you for listening. Thank you.